Hey guys, I'm here with my beginner guide today. Now I have quite a bit to go through. This might be a long video, so I'm maybe going to be posting a timestamp here in the comments or the information about the video. So if you want to look up something specific, feel free to check out the timestamps there. And with that, I'm going to jump straight into Dauntless. Uh, Now, before you do anything, flip your daily coin. You don't really have to do that before anything. I just always like to remember to flip my daily coin. Open your core. Now these daily cores are going to give you a lot of things that we're going to talk about today. So these things are all extremely useful to new players, and I will go over them later, so always make sure to get your daily core. First thing I'm going to talk about is weapons. Now there are 7 different kinds of weapons, and each type of weapon has its own strengths and weaknesses. So I'm just going to go left to right here and give you a very brief description of the weapon. And as a new player, what I would do is I would focus one of them and try to get a good build for one of those weapons. And then after you have that build fully fleshed out, then you can start working on other weapons. So first is sword. Now, sword has particularly moderate DPS and really high counter ability and really high ability to close distance on behemoths. This is important because a lot of behemoths do moves where they'll dash away from you and so forth. And you got to remember, if you're not hitting the behemoth, you're doing 0 DPS. So the ability to close in really quickly is extremely beneficial to sword. And as long as you play the weapon right, you should almost always have that ability ready to go. On to Axe. Axe is really good in doing absurdly high damage single hits. Anybody who's seen my Axe one-shot build video that I have posted recently knows that you can get 60k plus damage on this fairly easily. But the weapon itself is a very slow, very honestly slightly difficult weapon to play. I wouldn't play this as a beginner. But it is also really good at getting part breaks, which is important because part breaks on behemoths are going to give you materials that you need to build weapons. So Axe is particularly good at that. Hammer is technically the top DPS weapon in the game. However, it is really hard to maintain that because the behemoth has to be standing completely still in order for you to get that really high DPS. In my opinion, it is the hardest weapon to play optimally, and it has a lot of weaknesses to it. Namely, being you have the attacks are slow, they're risky to commit to, but they do absurdly high damage. So that's I would consider this an expert level weapon, hardest to play out of all the weapons. So if you want to try to get used to this as a beginner, know what you're in for. I have warned you. On to chain blades. Now, chain blades are known for having an extremely high survivability, and that's because they have a lot of moves where they give you invincibility frames. Basically, you can't get hit while you're doing them, and you're relatively safe while you're in the air because you are going to be jumping into the air a lot playing this weapon to avoid attacks. And its dash is also faster than any of the other weapons, so it's got a lot of mobility to it. The damage output, however, is kind of on the low side compared to most of the other weapons. But a lot of Chainblade mains will argue with you on that, and I've actually just finished posting 2 Chainblade builds, and they do pretty good damage, but compared to a lot of the other weapons, they fall slightly behind. So just kind of keep that in mind if you want to be a Chainblade main. Next is Warpike. Now, Warpike is kind of in a weird spot right now. It is currently the only weapon that can do what's called wounds, and wounds are something that boost the entire team if they hit a wounded part. They give them a little bit of attack speed and a little bit of extra damage, or was it movement speed? I can't remember particularly right now, but it's a buff to the rest of the team. So it's nice for that, but again, just like the chain blades, their damage output is a little bit on the low side. I think they're an absolutely phenomenal support weapon. They have other abilities to support the team other than the wounding. They have a special ability that boosts the team's critical hit rate, and that makes it an absurdly powerful support ability. So really, really good team weapon right there. Next, we have repeaters. Anybody who watches my channel knows this is my personal favorite weapon, and if you know anything about Reforge counts, you can kind of tell that right there. Now, repeaters are another support weapon. They're also a really good part break weapon. Not quite as good as the axe, but their main benefit, other than team support, is that they're really good at hyper focusing one part at a time. And when you're doing that to behemoths, you're typically breaking parts quickly. And when behemoths have their parts broken quickly in chain like that, they're extremely vulnerable to attacks by weapons with heavier DPS like hammer, and strikers. So they're extremely good at getting those chain part breaks and definitely buffing the team. So that's why I prefer the repeaters. They're also highly mobile. So because you got to treat them as more of handheld shotguns. I know they look like pistols, but they have extremely high damage fall off, so they are not whatsoever a ranged weapon. If you go watch my how to play repeaters beginner and advanced videos that I put out a couple months ago, you'll kind of learn what I mean by that. Now we have strikers finally. Strikers are typically considered the highest DPS weapon, not because they do more damage than hammer, but because they are more mobile than hammer, so that when behemoths dash away quickly, like I was talking about with sword, they have the ability to instantly close that distance and continue the brutal amount of DPS they do. Strikers aren't as difficult to learn as hammer, but they are still pretty difficult. It took me about a full week to really get down playing hammer and like really get the intricacies of the weapons and how to play them. And I might put out a how to play strikers video in the future. Let me know if you want to see that in the comments, and I will definitely think about it. So with that, the next thing on my list here is crafting. Now, of course, in any game like this, you want better weapons and equipment, and you have your two crafters right here. They do everything except for strikers and repeaters. The strikers and repeaters crafters are right up the stairs to the left and right. So with that, I'm just going to kind of show you how this works. You got a crafting menu here, and this is the armor crafter, Moira. So I have one piece of armor that I have yet to craft that I saved just for this video. I have these phalanx firearms here, so I'm just going to craft it. Now you notice in the bottom right it says untrack. I actually had it tracked. That is something that you can do if you want to. You see all the crafting requirements here? That'll actually put it in a quest menu for you, so that while you're out trying to gather these ingredients, you don't have to keep coming back to see what you need. And that's not something that a lot of players know. So I'm just going to go ahead and craft this. And now that it's crafted, you can see I have an option for what's called a power surge. Now, every weapon has two levels, basically a lower level and a power surge level. And a power surge, it requires ether hearts. And ether hearts are something that you get from reforging, which is what I will talk about later. But I am going to go ahead and power surge this. And as you can see, once it's power surged, it is at the maximum level. Now that does three things. It increases the base defense value. It increases the perk ability. If you noticed, I went from +2 Omni Surge to +3. And it also, if it has a special ability on it, like a weapon, it increases the effectiveness of that special ability. So, quests, there's something here. I'm just going to turn in this quest here, just because I have that available there. Now, with that, the next thing I'm going to get on to is the weapon abilities. Now, a lot of these you can just see by talking to the crafter. There's this thing in the bottom that says unique effect right in the middle there. And you can hit the button to show more information, and you can kind of see what each individual weapons do. Now, there are weapons and perks that are considered significantly better than others. I might make a video on that in the future. If that's something you want to see me do, go ahead and leave a comment in the video. and I will get to that in the future. So this is mostly just a playstyle thing. There's lots of different builds and combinations you can do with these that aren't super important when you first start playing, but eventually you are really going to want to pay attention to what perks and unique effects are on abilities. Now, the next thing we have to talk about is Reforges. Now, I actually have a weapon I want to reforge here. Let me just go through some of my builds. Hammer. So once you get a weapon to level 20, you're going to start at level 1, you're going to level it up to 20, and you're going to be like, alright, awesome. I'm at level 20, that's the highest it can go. But you get permanent benefits to all your weapons when you do what's called a reforge. Now right here is where you reforge. You saw me run up the stairs. You get your list of your weapons, and I'm going to reforge the hammer right here. And it cost me 100 ether sparks. And this gives me one of those ether hearts I just spent. So every time you power surge a weapon, you get to upgrade a piece of gear, and you also get those permanent benefits. And that is going to take me into the next section I'm going to talk about here, which is the Slayer's Path. Now here are the benefits of reforging the weapons. Now let's find hammer here real quick. So hammer, every reforge bonus gives me plus 3% to stagger. They give you them at 1, 3, 5, 7, and 10 reforges. That's the most you can get a bonus for currently. So reforging is definitely something that takes a bit of time, but it is definitely something that gives you a lot of long-term rewards if you plan on playing the game. So I definitely recommend doing that. Now, the game kind of walks you through all these levels when you first start. So you're going to start the game with just the first level, and you're going to kind of have to unlock these through your quests. But a lot of these are very simple things that you're going to look at. Plus 5 damage with pikes, plus 1% critical strike chance with pikes, and so forth. You get these options for all your weapons. You get to upgrade your tonics. You get to get more loadout slots. You get more mods and special abilities for your weapon. You get lanterns. You get more tonics. These are defense abilities, just permanent defense bonuses you get against certain elements. You get, these things are called pylons. They're little area of effect buffs you drop. I'll talk about those later. And you also get these permanent gathering abilities, which are used to make consumables, and then upgrades to grenades, and finally all these other things. Now, something I would definitely work on as early as possible is getting these expertise upgrades, because they're permanently going to give you an XP bonus, which really helps you start getting reforges faster. So try to work on those fairly early. Let me check my list here. We got power surging. All right. The next important thing on the list here is your power rating. Now you can see in the very top right here, I am level 1. I have a power rating of 184 and a resistance of 160. And if I switch over to a level 20 weapon, you can see that I have 583 power, which happens to be the game's current cap, and 540 resistance. These numbers are affected by various other things, like mainly Behemoth Element. So let's go ahead and do something that I know is going to give me a positive number. I'm going to switch to an electric weapon. Now, a lot of these show numbers. You'll see the power score in the middle there. It says a big 120. And to the right of it, it says a 96 and a minus 48. So I'm just going to kind of show you what I mean here. You say I'm at 583 power right there. I am going to show you how that would change if I were to fight a Terra Behemoth. You can see my weapon power rating goes up to 674. And the armor rating is going to depend on how much Terra or shock armor I'm wearing. You can kind of see that element guide right above those loadout numbers. It says Terra armor is good for fighting Terra Behemoths, and shock armor is bad for fighting Terra Behemoths. And then conversely, shock weapons are good. You want opposite weapons for fighting a Terra Behemoth, and same element is bad for fighting Behemoths. So try to remember that if you are going to fight one specific behemoth in particular. Alright, now we have this next section I'm going to do. Now this is on weapon mastery. Now there's a lot of different terms here. We obviously have went over weapon level and reforged level. Now we're going to go into this section over here. This is the mastery section. Now this used to be a lot more important, but it is still sort of important. So I'm just going to get into this. There's two different types of masteries, and then your Slayer rank. Now the Slayer rank is in the top left. That's kind of a combination of a lot of different things. It typically just levels up as you do, and then you get mastery rewards. These, I believe it's a combination of all your different weapon mastery levels. And then you have Behemoth Mastery. Now your Behemoth Mastery is things that you've done on behemoths. And as you can see here, there are things like slay them wearing their own armor, crafting their armor, dealing damage to them, getting staggers, wounds, and breaks on them. Stuff to that effect. Some behemoths can't be staggered, so they're missing that, for example. As you can kind of see here, some things that don't happen as commonly. Like if you don't play a lot of Warpike, you're not going to get a lot of wounds. So it's kind of something you have to work towards. And Behemoth Mastery is major in, and in fact it's the only thing I believe that affects the RNG drop rate of a behemoth's like epic drops and rare drops and stuff. Every time you break apart or slay a behemoth, you have a chance to get a rare drop and a smaller chance to get an epic drop. And that chance goes up the more check marks you have on this behemoth. So try to fill up those check marks. Also, every time you gold star a behemoth, you'll see there's just left to where it says completed and there's a gold star, there's a XP kind of meter there. Now when that fills up, you get a core. It says right below it, uncommon cell core. And it's just going to keep giving you cell cores every time you fill that bar again. So it's a great way to get cores and quickly unlock all of your perks. The weapon masteries are kind of a fairly similar way. They each have their own check marks and stuff, and their own methods of getting these stars. I'm actually kind of upset because I used to have all these gold starred, but then they changed it, so I don't have all these gold starred anymore. But anyway, you use the weapon enough, you fill up all of the check marks, and then you get that gold starred, and you continue getting experience with that particular weapon, and you keep getting cores. So fantastic way to do that. Also, just kind of brag here about that I have my repeater affinity done. I bet you less than 100 people worldwide have that. That's extremely difficult to do in affinity gold star. Now, the next thing I'm going to talk about here is the merits. Now, there are several ways to get merits. The most common way is just by doing hunting grounds, which is something that I'm going to talk about in a little bit. And the other way is your quests. And quests are the fastest way to do a lot of things. Now you're going to see I have 4 bounties here. This is the bounty window. There's several ways to get bounties. You get 4 bounties every day just from flipping your coin, which I did at the start of this video, which is one thing that you always want to do because bounties are life. They are easily the fastest way to get experience, the fastest way to get merits, the fastest way to get hunt pass XP, and the fastest way to get weapon skill. So it's just, all of these things they're great for. So try to get these as frequently as possible. Now the other way to get them is the actual bounty tokens is in hunting grounds again. There are chests there which you use the keys, and you also get keys in your daily coin flip. And there's a 1 in 4 chance that you get a bounty token out of a chest. Next section I'm going to cover is quests. These are split up into main quests, which are things you need to do to typically progress in the game and unlock stuff if you're a newer player. You have your side quests, which are just kind of, random things. These are where the events usually go. They have time limits on them. And then there are rumors, which are things that you pick up for either dyes or cosmetics. It's almost never anything. In fact, I don't think there's ever been a rumor that's been for anything that's not just cosmetic. Finally, the challenges section. Now, this is brand new. They just released this in the 1.8 patch. I love it already. It gives you a lot of stuff to do. You get your daily mission. You get coins, which are used for the reward cache. And we're getting weekly missions. And the cool thing about the weekly missions now is that you have to hit X here if you're on PlayStation, or I'm sure you could click it if you're on PC. The cool thing about the weekly rewards is they do not go away if you miss out on them. So as the weeks go by, you're going to have more and more to do if you haven't done them yet. And then you can kind of scroll down here. Now, the daily challenger is currently bugged, so don't worry about that. But you can kind of do these at pretty much any time and just kind of complete your Hunt Pass missions for the Hunt Pass. Now, anybody who hasn't played a game like this, Hunt Passes are basically just things you earn just by playing the game. And you also get coins to spend in the reward cache in addition to just the stuff you get from the Hunt Pass itself. So you can kind of choose what you want as a reward instead of being forced to just take a couple things and then that's it. So I think it's great. All right, let's see here. I still have to cover merits. Now, merits are also going to be a thing that you get from hunting grounds mostly, and also I just showed you the bounties. So kind of pay attention to which merits you need because the bounties tell you what kind of merits you get from that particular bounty, and then you spend them here. Like this particular upgrade costs exploration merits, and that's pretty much all the merits are used for. So definitely get them if you're a new player and upgrade and buy as much of the stuff you need as you can. All right, what else do we have? We have the perk system. So perks mostly come from cells and equipment, and they're mostly used mid to late game. They're not super important early game. More than anything, you're just paying attention to your power rating. You want to level up and unlock more cells because there's no guarantee that the cells you get early game are going to be super useful. So don't worry about it too much early game. Just farm your cores and build up a pool of cells, and then eventually you'll start getting some really good ones. Like Berserker here is actually not from a cell core. That's from what's called the trial shop, which I'll go over later. And Cunning, for example, is a really good cell that you'll pick up. Cunning, I use that on almost all my builds. So each piece of equipment has an ability on it. This one says Cunning, for example. And then it also has a cell slot. And the cells are divided into several types. Legendary weapons have prismatic cell slots. I'm just going to use these to show you the different cell types. You have defensive cells, which are typically things that restore hit points, give you shields, give you more hit points, chance to reduce damage, that kind of thing, or reduce status effects, or negate status effects. So very survivability kind of type cell. We have power cells. These typically just give you raw damage increases. It doesn't always necessarily have to be just core damage. It could be extra part damage, damage to objects. It could also be stagger damage. Just all kinds of just raw damage type increases. So then you have, they just kind of changed this. They used to be called mobility cells. I currently don't remember the name of they just gave them. But they're essentially things that affect your movement and or attack speed. So they're going to make you run faster. They're going to make you dodge using less stamina. They're going to give you more stamina. They're going to give you damage if you have low stamina, or they're going to increase your attack speed for breaking parts. That kind of stuff. So very movement, stamina, attack speed based right there. And we have technique cells. These mostly cover things like wound damage, critical hit rate, and let me see some of the other examples here. Oh, benefits for dodging through behemoth attacks. So, like Predator, I would consider that a bonus for being good at evading attacks. You Pulse is critical related. A lot of these things are like that. And of course, Savagery is a wounded ability. Then we have utility cells. These are things that typically affect your lantern or ether vents or give you other kind of miscellaneous buffs, like Cascade spits out random buffs, Catalyst buffs your tonics, Conduit is a buff for the team, at least anybody who's standing in it, including yourself. Lots of miscellaneous stuff tends to go in here, like increases weapon meter gain rate. Only about half the weapons have meter gain rate, so it's not particularly useful on everything. Affects pylon range, like a lot of miscellaneous stuff typically goes here. Faster reviving of allies, yeah, lots of more buffs. So try to remember that. Now, a lot of the build videos that other people do, they typically tell you, hey, run this, 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 and that. Run these particular perks. But most of them, and at least in my experience, don't tell you why you should run those perks. So I always try to explain why you're running a particular perk on every build that I do so that it makes sense. And that also kind of tells you how to play the build instead of just, here's a really good build and then watch me do 60,000 damage. And they don't explain how you get to that. So I would really try to pay attention to how these bonuses work with each other, and that'll really help you in the end make your own builds and feel confident about playing the game. Next section we have is consumables. Now, this isn't a super important section. Most of the consumables are kind of not really important to gameplay. Sometimes they do come in handy, though, particularly in trials if you're trying to get your trial marks for the week. That is something I'll cover here shortly. You're going to want to run certain tonics, and if you're running in a group, somebody's going to want to be running a pylon. It's just something that you learn once you get deeper into the game. But for the most part, grenades are not really that useful, especially once you start getting into some good builds. Taking the time to throw a grenade, you're going to be doing less damage than if you just kept attacking with your weapon. So when you're low level, totally use your grenades. Use all your grenades. They're great at low level, but aside from that, not super important. Tonics, a lot of the tonics are super useful. Ether Drive tonic is really useful. Assault tonics, really good for hammer and strikers because they specialize in doing stagger damage. Blitz tonic is good for any weapon. Forensic tonic is good for any weapon. Bulwark tonic is particularly good in a few situations. One particularly, I say heroic escalations, and that's because they're, even if you're max level with fully built out gear, you're still potentially getting killed in one attack. So Bulwark tonics just prevent that. They're fantastic. And you get 5 uses per drink out of them, so it's really useful. They're also useful for like really any really high level content, just to prevent you from getting killed in one attack. Or if you're playing a low level weapon and you just want to play with your buddies, and let's say your weapon's level like 3 and your guys want to do 10 to 50 escalations, then bring some Bulwark tonics so you don't get one shot. You're not a drag on your team. They're great for that. Cleansing pylons, a lot of people don't realize this because originally cleansing pylons were brought out to remove frostbite, but not a lot of people notice that it says removes negative conditions, and that means every negative condition. It means poison, it means you being on fire, it means corruption. Literally any native status effect on you from a behemoth will be instantly cleared if you drop a cleansing pylon, and will keep you immune to all status effects as long as that pylon is up and you're in the radius. So extremely useful. I typically just like to bring them with me just to have, honestly. Life drain tonics are great if you just want an extra healing source with you. Insight tonics are great for wound damage builds on Warpike. Stamina tonics are good if you want to do a mounting build to, like, let's say Mount Torgadoro or Mount Malkirion or something, because they just let you stay mounted for much longer. And then, of course, transfusion grenades and life spring pylons are just more healing sources So that's pretty much all the... Oh, just ignore airstrike beacons. They're terrible. You place them down in the ground and like 10 seconds later it comes. And let's be honest, how many behemoths stay in place for that long? Almost none of them. So I honestly wouldn't even bother with those. But all right, with consumables out of the way, let's get into the hunt types. Now, obviously you have hunting grounds, which is what the game's going to start you on. And to start off, you should only have Emberthorn Cave unlocked, and eventually you'll just keep unlocking more as you go. Now, there's a couple things you should note about these. And the first thing is on the right side here, we have the recommended level, of course, and the behemoths. But the most important thing is what it says, guaranteed behemoth. And a lot of times you're going to be like, oh, I need parts from, let's just say I need parts from a Riftstalker. So you're like, okay, so you're going to go down the list here, and you're going to wait until you see a Riftstalker in the very top left of the behemoths that show up there. And I believe on all of them, the guaranteed behemoth is always the one that shows up in the top left of the behemoth pictured. So right there it says there will always be at least one Riftstalker. So that's where you want to go. Also, that's usually where the lowest level version of that behemoth is. So if you're let's see, like Scrave we have up in that list, but I think Scrave is a guaranteed behemoth. Yep, it's on the island before. And I don't think Scrave shows up before in any of these. So it's typically the easiest version. So when you want to farm parts for your weapons and armor, that's an absolutely great way to do it, because every time you kill that behemoth, another one is immediately going to respawn. I believe the respawn timer is about 15 seconds, maybe it's 20. Just sit there and wait for the next one to pop up on your little compass that's on the top there. Absolutely fantastic way to just power level your weapons in some stages too. I highly recommend Thunderwatch is a really good map to level up on at low level. The Niziga is the guaranteed behemoth there. He's really easy to kill. It's also a really good way to learn how to get your timing on booping behemoths, because he has a really easy, slow attack where he glides along the ground twice in a row, and you can boop him during both of those. So great there. Next one I'm going to recommend is Cold Runner Key. That's a great one to learn Scrave. Now, Scrave is a difficult behemoth to learn, but it also teaches you how to position yourself as well. And he's also got a really easy to see boop. So again, good practice on booping birds in that one. Hades Reach is fantastic to farm Hellions. I am there all the time. In fact, I have a build on the channel that is specifically for farming the Hellions. You just melt him. And even though it's a level 15 to 18, I think I go in there at like level 8 or level 10 or somewhere in that general area, and I just shred this behemoth with this build. So if you want to get good XP at around level 8 to 10, that's the place to do it. And then, of course, we have Paradox Breaks and Twilight Sanctuary are the ending maps, and Blazeworks gives you double XP, so which you can't get to level 18, but level 18 to 20, definitely recommend Blazeworks. Fast XP, huge chunks. So with that, I'm going to go on to escalations. Now there's 4 types of escalations. Each escalation, let's just click on Shock real quick. It's going to show you a 1 to 13 and a 10 to 50. Now, 1 to 13 you can do as a brand new player. It's not meant to be difficult, it's meant to be fun, and it gives you maximum XP until you hit level 7. So it's a really good way to level up level 1 to 7, and just fly through those really quick. They're very fun, and they give you amps, and they let you play with your builds, and they're just a blast. 10 to 50s, if you're really geared, you can start them at around level 8 to 10. If you're not maximized out, I would suggest waiting until you're probably about level 14 or 15 before you start trying to do the 10 to 50s. And also, this is important, you want to wait until you have your lantern leveled up. Now, if you go from the start here, the lantern is right over here, and I'm going to kind of show you the upgrade section right next to Archon Drew. and there's these power boosts at the top. I highly recommend getting at least your first power boost before going into the 10 to 50s, because each of these 3 power boosts give you plus 50 to attack and defense, and that's a lot. So running into a 10 to 50 with none of those, you're going to take a lot of damage from the behemoths, even if you're level 20. Just a warning. wrong section there. So then you have the heroic escalation, which is, it rotates every week. This week it is Frost, as you can see. So we have 51 to 90. Now these behemoths are extremely high level. They don't display the behemoth level, but if I were to approximate it, I would say they are about level, they might start at level 22 or 23 and go up to, at the end, probably level 24 or 25. So they're very, very strong behemoths, and you need to bring a plan and a strategy and consumables and all this kind of stuff with you, because they are brutal. So, and then of course the final escalation type is escalation patrols, and the patrols are just random. If it's, they designed this for if you have trouble finding a group, you can just hit a patrol and it'll very quickly, I can attest to this. I did a live stream doing 5 of these a couple days ago. Typically within 30 seconds you're already in a patrol group ready to go, because it puts you in groups that need people. So great for that. And then of course sometimes you have quests to do it. This week there is a quest to do 5 of them. And then finally, once you unlock trials, which isn't until you've already been through most of the game gives it to you as one of the final things to unlock. Trials are designed to be really hard, and a lot of people ask for help and carries on these. I am considering doing some trial carry videos with some of my subscribers, so if that's something that you want to see, go ahead and leave a comment and let me know that you want to see some trial carries, and I'll try to give you guys some information on when that's going to be. So there are 2 levels. There's the normal level, which typically only has a couple of these hunt modifiers here. Now you'll see that they don't give you a behemoth level, but they do tell you what weapon and armor power they recommend for it, and it's 600 each for this. So as you can tell, I am under, because I think I have a frost weapon on right now. But he's only got a couple modifiers, and then you get into the Dauntless trial, and the weapon and power requirement, or the suggested number, goes up. They have significantly more hit points. I think it's about 40 to 50% more hit points. But the big thing is that they also have significantly more armor, which means your weapons are doing less damage. So they typically take a lot longer to kill, and they also have a lot more modifiers. Now, Dauntless Trials always has the 1 chance modifier, so you have 0 self-revives. And then they have all these other modifiers, which typically make the fight a lot more of a headache than it normally is, because trust me, if it was just a Pangar in the middle of a map with 1 revive, everyone would be able to clear it with no problem. Well, maybe not everybody, but it would be very easy compared to with all these modifiers. So the modifiers are usually what give you your run for the money and kind of change up the fight. So that's why the Dauntless Trial is typically considered the hardest thing in the game. Now, I'm just going to go, I forgot that one shows me off to the left. I'm going to show you right here the final little part of Trials, and that's the leaderboards. Now, there's several kinds of leaderboards. We have the solo leaderboards, and the infinite symbol on the left basically just means that it's mixed. So as you can see right now, repeaters are dominating because it's Pangar week, and Pangar is extremely susceptible to repeaters, so repeaters are doing very well this week. Then we have weapon-specific boards, and these boards obviously only apply to that particular weapon type. So if you get on any of those, or, wrong button, or the party board, which is the top 100 parties of 2 to 4 players. That was a quick run I did earlier. Did a group, so that time is still on there. But you get in the top 100, and that time stays until the end of the week. You get in the Champion Store, and the Champion Store is just extra stuff. The regular trial store is open to everybody. You get access to these extra cells, which are only available through the trial store, and you'll see that it requires special types of marks, and these are called steel marks, and you get these from doing normal trials. Normal trials only give you steel marks. Now everything here that shows gold marks you can only get from Dauntless trials, and I'm sorry, that's not 100% true. Anything that says champions on it is only available if you've been in the top 100. Anything that's victorious is available to everybody. So that's my mistake. So you can still do the Dauntless trials and clear it, and if you don't make the top 100, you can still buy all this victorious stuff. And I believe potions and whatever else is available. So like you can buy gold Slayer cores and gold tonics and stuff if you happen to run out of stuff, although I don't really recommend it. But then if you're in the top 100, you can buy all this champion stuff, and the champion stuff opens up for you, including the gold crown, which everybody used to covet. It's recently become significantly easier to get since the addition of the weapon-specific boards, but it's still an achievement to get your gold crown. People will respect you and consider you at least not a total noob if you have your gold crown, so that's always something to strive towards getting. All right. And with that, I believe I have covered everything. And I'd like to throw out one more big thank you to everybody who's subbed to my channel in the last week. It's been a trip how much popularity the channel's been giving. I love you guys. I am thinking about doing a title giveaway, and that might be something that I post tomorrow. Basically, stay tuned for it. It's basically going to be I give... in the next week, I'm going to try to get as many subs as I can, and anybody who's subbed to my channel will be entered into a title giveaway. And the title giveaway is I have these items saved away here. The Gift of Naming. And what it does is it gives you one of any... I believe it's 10 random titles, and anybody who knows about the Gift of Naming knows whether or not they have all the titles or not already, probably. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, I guarantee you don't have these titles. So that's going to be something that I'm giving away up to, I believe, I think I'm going to do one to start off, and then I might do another one each week for the next 3 weeks. So that'll be something fun to interact with you guys. So stay tuned for that. I also might be doing various gift giveaways. I still have lots of gifts and presents, and these contain tonics and bounty tokens, and I don't think they have keys, but bounty tokens are better than keys, so that might also be something that I include in the Gift of Naming giveaway. And with that, I'm going to call the video. I hope your mind was blown. I got the emote here too. That's not the right emote. There we go. Mind blown. All right. Anybody who's new to the game, I hope you stick around. It's a great community. I would say check out the official Dauntless Discord. I am there from time to time. So, peace out.